The rain had been falling all morning, drenching the cracked pavement outside the city's largest university. Students hurried past puddles with umbrellas and laughter, but at the edge of the courtyard stood a girl whose entire world was crumbling silently behind a forced smile. Her name was Elena. She clutched a worn-out folder against her chest, her eyes fixed on the glossy poster taped to the glass door of the auditorium. Graduation ceremony? 3 p.m.? Formal attire required. Elena's breath trembled as she looked down at her scuffed, torn sneakers, ones she had sewn 3 times already with dental floss because thread was too expensive. Today was supposed to be her proudest day. After years of hunger, night shifts, and sleeping on library floors, she had finally graduated with top honors in business administration. But as the rain seeped into the holes of her shoes, the only thing she could feel was humiliation. She couldn't afford a new pair of shoes, not even a second-hand one. Her last paycheck had gone toward her mother's hospital bills. And now, with only an hour before the ceremony, she faced an impossible choice. Skip her graduation or walk across the stage looking like she didn't belong among the children of bankers. Lawyers and business owners, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of humanity, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps us bring more real, life-changing stories like this one to you every day. Elena took a deep breath, forcing herself to step out into the rain. Her clothes clung to her thin frame, her heart pounding in her chest. She walked into a nearby cafe, hoping to find a quiet corner to dry off before her name was called at the ceremony. The cafe smelled of roasted coffee and cinnamon, filled with the chatter of young professionals. Everyone seemed to belong, everyone except her. At the far end of the cafe, near the window, sat a man in a tailored charcoal suit. His name was Liam Carter, though few people knew him by his full name. To most of the world, he was Mr. Carter, the CEO of a billion-dollar tech company that had started from a garage a decade ago. But to himself, he was just a man who'd once been hungry, homeless, and barefoot at his own college graduation. He watched people quietly, his eyes calm yet sharp, as if constantly searching for something that reminded him of the boy he used to be. When Elena stumbled in, dripping and nervous, he noticed her instantly. There was something about her expression, pride laced with pain, that made him put down his coffee. She sat down at a corner table, clutching her bag tightly, as if afraid someone might steal her last possession. Minutes passed before she whispered to the barista that she didn't have enough money for even a small drink, and could she please just sit for a while to dry off? The barista smiled politely and nodded, though a few customers nearby gave her disapproving looks. Liam observed everything quietly. Elena began to write in her old notebook, the cover frayed, filled with notes and dreams. She wasn't writing an essay or a plan anymore. She was writing a letter to her late father. She wrote about how proud he would have been today, how she wished he could see her name on that diploma, and how much it hurt that she couldn't even look presentable for the most important day of her life. Her tears fell on the page, leaving faint stains she quickly wiped away. Just then the door chimed again, and a group of her classmates entered, laughing and radiant in their gowns. They noticed her and waved awkwardly, then whispered among themselves. One of them, a girl named Amber, smirked and said loudly, "Oh my God, Elena, are you actually going to the ceremony in those shoes?" The laughter that followed pierced deeper than the cold rain. Elena tried to smile, pretending not to care, but her hands shook. Liam's jaw tightened. He could see the humiliation burning behind her polite silence. As the group left, he looked down at his polished shoes, handcrafted Italian leather. He remembered a time when he'd borrowed a stranger's shoes for his first job interview because his own had holes. He remembered how that small act of kindness had changed his entire life. After a few moments of hesitation, he stood up and walked toward her table. Elena looked up, startled. He was tall, composed, with the quiet confidence of someone used to being obeyed. She noticed his shoes first, gleaming black leather, exactly her size, maybe. Before she could say anything, Liam smiled softly and asked if she was all right. She tried to brush it off, saying she was fine. But then something inside her broke. In a trembling voice, she admitted she wasn't. She said she couldn't afford decent shoes for her graduation and didn't want to embarrass herself on stage. Her voice was barely a whisper when she asked the question that would change everything. "Sir, I know it sounds crazy, but could I borrow your shoes? Just for an hour. I'll bring them back. I promise." For a moment, Liam was silent. The cafe seemed to freeze around them. Then, instead of laughing, he gently set down his briefcase, untied his shoes, and slid them across the floor toward her. He said only, "They're all yours." Elena blinked, stunned. She protested, saying she couldn't possibly take them, but he insisted. He told her that shoes were meant to carry people toward their dreams, not to sit pretty under a table. With trembling hands, she accepted them. As she slipped them on, she felt warmth flood her chest. They fit perfectly. She looked up to thank him, but he had already turned toward the door, barefoot, his coat draped over one arm as he disappeared into the rain. Elena made it to her graduation just in time. When her name was called, the audience applauded loudly. She walked across the stage with tears in her eyes, not because of the applause, but because of the stranger who had believed she was worth helping. The shoes gleamed under the lights, a symbol of dignity and hope. But what she didn't know was that Liam had followed her quietly from a distance. He stood in the back of the auditorium, unnoticed, watching her accept her diploma with grace and pride. For the first time in years, he felt something shift inside him. A quiet reminder of why he'd built his company in the first place. After the ceremony, Elena searched everywhere for him to return the shoes, but he was gone. She left them with the cafe's barista the next day, along with a small note. "Thank you for believing in me. Whoever you are, you gave me the courage to keep walking." I'll never forget it. Weeks passed. Elena began searching for jobs, but rejections piled up quickly. She didn't have fancy clothes or connections, and the city was ruthless to dreamers without money. Still, she persisted, walking miles to attend interviews, spending nights rewriting her resume by candlelight. One morning, she received an email from a company she'd never heard of, Carter Innovations. The message said she'd been shortlisted for an internship. Confused but hopeful, she prepared her best outfit, the same plain white blouse and black skirt she wore to graduation. When she entered the company's glass building, her heart raced. Everything looked luxurious. Polished floors, golden nameplates, elegant employees. She felt small but determined. After waiting nervously in the lobby, she was called into the interview room, and there he was. The man from the cafe. Liam sat behind a large mahogany desk, wearing the same calm smile she remembered. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. She stammered, apologizing for taking his shoes, for bothering him that day. But he shook his head and told her she owed him nothing. Instead, he thanked her. He said that seeing her walk across that stage reminded him of something he had forgotten. The fire that comes from starting with nothing and still daring to dream. He explained that he had followed her academic records and discovered her incredible achievements, her volunteer work, her grades, and her resilience. Then he looked her in the eyes and said, "I don't think you're here for an internship. Elena, I think you're here for a future." He offered her a full-time position, with a mentorship under his direct supervision. For the first time in her life, Elena didn't just feel seen, she felt believed in. Months passed, and Elena rose quickly within the company. Her creativity, humility, and work ethic shone in every project. She would often glance at her polished shoes, the same pair Liam had once given her, now framed in her office as a reminder of where it all began. Years later, Elena stood on a stage once again, this time as the keynote speaker at a women's empowerment conference hosted by Carter Innovations. Liam, now her mentor and dear friend, sat proudly in the front row. When she told the story of the day she borrowed a stranger's shoes, the audience wept. She ended her speech with words that lingered in every heart present. Sometimes, the smallest kindness can become the foundation for someone else's entire future. Never underestimate what your compassion can build in another person's life. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep spreading stories that remind the world how powerful simple kindness can be. Special request, comment below. I believe in kindness. If you'd lend your shoes, your heart, or your hope to someone who needs it. And as the applause echoed through the hall that night, Elena turned to Liam with tears in her eyes. He smiled and whispered, I told you, shoes are meant to carry people toward their dreams. And this time, Elena realized she wasn't walking alone anymore.